Yeah, we dropped the hook and haven't moved an inch. The house has been right there the whole time.
Oh yeah, we're stuck in the mud really good.
Rich already crashed the drone.
Had to change a couple of propellers.
Yeah. I'm like, isn't it a little breezy? No. What? And how high up did you get?
I crashed into the sailbag, so about
From the top of the
3
cabin.
feet off the deck. Here we are out at China Camp. Got a boat in front of us. Got a boat behind us. I think we're gonna go do a little hike tomorrow morning.
It's crazy how big this bay is. It's all shallow, right?
Yeah, it's really shallow, so it gets churned up really good. It gets really lumpy.
Yeah, it's so weird how big it is and how shallow. Yeah, you can see all the Benicia tanks over there. I'm gonna drop it. There you go.
Wow, I just pinched my finger and that fell.
Oh yeah, you might have deserved that.
You ready for a boat ride?
I think so.
Our first land-based adventure since we took off.
Feels weird leaving the boat.
It does.
We're gonna go somewhere over here. It's like a pier.
There you go.
Do you want me to hand me your water bottle too?
Sure.
So we are at China Camp State Park. It's first time on land since Sunday. Today is Wednesday. I think that's the longest for us. Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Let's go see what China Camp has to offer.
Absolutely.
San Francisco Bay once held abundant seafood resources, especially grass shrimp. Point San Pedro was once the center of a thriving Chinese fishing village. Starting in the 1860s, immigrants from the Guangdong province in China lived and fished here. It's the only surviving fishing village in the Bay Area. The villagers sailed in junks, a type of Chinese sailing ship with fully battened sails, to catch shrimp. Nearly 3 million pounds of shrimp were brought to shore, cooked, dried, then shipped to Asia and other foreign markets. The junk boats sailed to the mudflats, dropped sail, and set large triangular nets by staking them into the mud in long lines. The mouths of the nets were set to open to the oncoming tide to catch shrimp swept along by the current. As the tide slackened, the nets were raised and dumped into large baskets in the boat's hold. The nets were then reset in the opposite direction for the next tidal cycle. The village grew to nearly 500 people and 28 structures until the 1880s, when heavy pressure, discrimination from local competitors, and state officials caused the Chinese shrimping activities to decline. The result of that discrimination was the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which forbade new Chinese laborers to come to the U.S., and a series of laws that would shut down the shrimping business. The shrimp fishery once again thrived into the 1930s and 1940s, but on a smaller scale. At China Camp, a small community with the Quan family at its center remained. The Quans rented out boats for sports fishing, ran a small restaurant, and continued operating the last Chinese shrimp fishery in San Pablo Bay. The death knell for the shrimping business sounded in the 1960s, when river water that normally would have poured into the bay was diverted to thirsty Southern California, making the bay too salty for shrimp to thrive.
How we doing? Hey, what time's this gate close? We're tied up at the dinghy dock right now.
Yeah, this is about 5, 6 o'clock.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so you're all good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Right on.
enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, first we get to Rat Rock Cove and then Shoreline Trail. Let's do this.
After a short hike through China Camp State Park, we headed over the hill to a nearby golf course for lunch in San Rafael.
It's China Camp Beach and the pier There's Ramble on way out in the distance.
All right, back to the dinghy dock. Smells like eucalyptus.
Yeah. Well, that was our afternoon adventure. A little off the boat, land-based foot travel. We are stuck in the mud really good. Reverse idle is good. Keep going this way for a minute till we get off our chain. It's underneath us. Should be coming up now.
Let me know when they're free, and I want to drift backwards.
You can put it in gear. Boy, that anchor rescue sure packs up with mud. It seems to wash off okay. I'm glad we got a wash down.
Yeah, me too.
Absolute must have. It's time to ramble on.
Frickin' forgot to start the frack.
Oh, you loser.
I forgot.
So what's the plan for today?
Well, we've got 1.1 knots of wind.
It's been pretty flat on the bay.
So, actually, we have 4 knots, but we're going 4 knots.
So, yeah, that's 4 knots apparent.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, ultimately, the plan is we're going to anchor in Aquatic Park. So
Beautiful.
we have reservations.
What's up, Captain?
Yeah. A lot of boat traffic today.
.6 knots of wind.
Another day of motoring.
One and a half over ground. Nice. 'Getting a little bit of roll in the anchorage here. I think we're gonna set up something to help alleviate that. What do you think, Jenny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, I don't feel sick or anything. It's just every once in a while we get this kind of swell that comes in, and it's quite a bit. It's really slow, but it's quite a bit of roll. So yeah, we'll just we got a thing. We might as well try it.
Let's fix it.
Yeah.
We decided to anchor out in Aquatic Park Cove while we waited for our rudder position sensor to get delivered. In the meantime, we went ahead and commissioned the watermaker and tested that thing out as well. How you doing?
Good.
We got a sticky engine tilt, and it caused us a little bit of grief.
So Jenny had to get her pants wet. And her feet soaked. There's things in life.
Of course, while we were there at the Embarcadero, we did do the obligatory touristy stuff. We're getting pretty close on our water tank. We got about 6 or 7 inches in each tank, and it's time to fill them back up. So we're going through the initial commissioning and startup process for our Cruise RO Sea Maker. Not sponsored, by the way. I still need to hook up the freshwater flushing supply. So we got rid of the salt tank. They used to provide salt water for our electroscan when we were parked in freshwater. So I have a handy source of water supply from the pressure pump side that will feed the freshwater flushing part of it. And I'm gonna hook up that last little bit. Goes through a pressure regulator so we don't overpressurize the membrane. Then we'll go through the flooding, commissioning, startup, pump checks, and then eventually we'll start pushing water into the tanks. We got the generator running, and that's something that I guess they recommend it. We probably could run it off the inverter, but it would be a hard load on the inverter. This thing doesn't take, I think there's an initial power surge when you start up the water pump. But anyway, the high pressure pump runs, I'm guessing about 9.5 amps. And with 13 amps coming in from the generator, leaves a little bit extra for charging the batteries. The boost pump runs off the DC side, but it takes, I think, well, the wire is rated for like 12 or 15 amps DC, 12 amps DC. I would like to check it and see what kind of loads we're running. If we do run it off the inverter, you know, we run the cooktop and the oven off the inverter, so we could theoretically make seawater or make fresh water off of the inverter, but we'll see. We're running through some tests and see how it works out. Right now, we are in Aquatic Park Cove in San Francisco Bay. I checked the salinity, and we're running right about, the specific gravity is about 1.026, and the density of seawater, specific gravity, is about 1.032 to 1.035. And I tested it with a refractometer, and we're a little less than actual seawater if we were offshore, so that's going to make it a little easier on the membranes. You won't have to use as much pressure to push that seawater through the membrane and filter it out and everything. So San Francisco Bay obviously probably isn't the cleanest water around, especially if you get over into like Richardson Bay where there's a whole lot of anchor outs. I watched a video this morning, and it was one of the Cruise RO videos, and Rich Boren, the owner, was saying, you know, he gets this question a lot, where can I make water? And basically you can pretty much, unless there's an oily slick, like, you know, somebody dumped their bilge overboard and there's oil, physical oil floating on the surface, that would cause irreparable damage to the membranes. But, you know, nobody wants to think about it, but a lot of people don't use their holding tanks, or they empty their holding tanks illegally. If your neighbor's dumping out his holding tank, do you want to make water in it? Well, the reality is that that's all going to get caught in the pre-filters, because everything that gets squeezed through the RO membranes is at the molecular level. So you're looking at the ions, the individual sodium and chloride or chlorine, whatever, molecules that are getting squeezed out of the water, and only H2O is going through the output side. So poo water isn't going to end up in your freshwater supply. I printed out the initial commissioning, which is just checking all the fittings and stuff like that, checking the rotation of the seawater pump. So I'm going to bump it and check that with a mirror. Verified the three-way valve located immediately before the boost pump, after the sea strainer is open to seawater. I'm going to open the sea cock here. Here we go. We're going to let water into the boat.
Leaking.
Well, that's good. First leak found. Where's it coming from? It's coming from this damn tubing.
Yeah. Oh, the tubing?
It's coming from this hose clamp right here. So with a screwdriver handle, I can't get a good purchase on it, but with this, make it a little tighter. So blue paper towels are great because you can tell immediately if it's leaking. And that was it. Now I just got to vent the air out of it and let seawater enter the filters. chasing a couple of leaks. They were actually leaking at the push to connect fittings. And there's little O-rings in there. And you're supposed to use silicone lube to lube up the pipe when you push it in. And they also give you a cutter that cuts the tubing square, or at least relatively square. I mean, it could be there's a little bit of an angle it can be. But the tubing was leaking.
Okay.
And I chased it down, and I think one of them was pinched because it was too hard of a sweep. I went ahead and tried to save myself a 90 and just flexed the tubing up in, and I think it was kind of kinking. But I think also it might have been an O-ring problem because I changed the fittings, put in a 90 down here, and that's where the raw water is actually entering the boat.
Boost pump on. Ready?
Yep. So there's a fan. And now the boost pump is running.
And you're bleeding air out of it?
I'm going to go ahead and check there's an air purge. So now it's building up pressure.
Yeah, I've got 38 PSI.
Okay. There's no leaks anywhere. Continue running boost pump till water is observed exiting the brine discharge and the air bubbles have been forced out of the pre-filter assembly. Let's see what happens when we turn on this HP pump while we're running the Honda. Let the system run for approximately 5 minutes to ensure air bubbles have been flushed.
Yeah, we're back to inflow.
We'll be able to hear ourselves think a little better.
Well, that's better.
It's better. Dial up the pressure to about 600 PSI for 10 minutes. This is the initial startup, so this isn't the standard procedure for every time we make water. This is the initial.
So 10 minutes you got to dial it up?
For 10 minutes you dial it up just to make sure everything's cool, and then you increase it to a standard setting of 800 PSI. So rotate this way, this is increasing the pressure. So we got good boost. We're reading the gauge here now, and we want to go up to 6. You're also going to notice this flow meter is going to go up, and that's going to tell you how much water it's making. There you go. So now we're making water. So now it's getting all the bubbles out of the system. Flow meter is going to rise up. Now that's how much it'll clear off after a bit. But now, so it's going to be making 1.2 gallons a minute. Now it should be cranking out here.
I hear something.
Yeah, it's coming out of here.
Oh, okay.
So here's that's the sample water faucet. The TDS meter is now dropping. So it was like 1800. Initially we tested the actual raw water with a handheld TDS meter. Jenny tested it and it was 2800. So now we're down to 800.
Which is what our tank water is now anyway.
Yeah, the
From
tank
the Delta?
car. Yeah, that's through filter and that RV water softener thing.
Our first glass of water. No, don't you?
Good one. Yeah.
It's good.
It's sweet.
Tastes, it's not. Okay,
Well, it doesn't taste
Maybe
like the
it tastes
water we've
sweet.
been drinking for the last 10 years.
Yeah. No, it's good. Let's make some water.
It's damn
Put it in the
good.
tank.
All right. So we ran it for about an hour-ish. Made 0.45 gallons a minute based on the flow meter. So basically all we do is dial down the pressure, and that's going to take about 30 seconds. So after running this thing in salt water, I guess it's best if you flush it out with fresh water. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give that a go. Cockpit shower, fuel line. This weird little flushing adapter that I had to modify with a heat gun. So I should be over the intake. See, this thing has a weird intake. It's a 2-stroke and it intakes from the bottom of the cavitation plate.
Where did you get that?
I ordered it on Amazon. And then I had to flare it out with a heat gun a little bit to make it fit over the cavitation plate. Probably should run it a little longer than that, but I think it's fine. It's good for now if we're just transporting it. I'm sure we'll splash this thing in a couple of days when we get to our next anchorage. I feel better about leaving this for a few days. It's been a while since we haven't flushed it. We haven't flushed it since we've been in salt water. So